Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Raymond Yeung. Here are tonight's top stories. Health experts called on authorities in Hong Kong to consider charging non-residents for COVID vaccinations. Dozens of Rohingya refugees land on Indonesian beach after weeks at sea. And Christmas Day in the NBA brought some tasty treats as the elite teams duel it out. With mainland residents set to return to Hong Kong soon, experts are now asking the government to review its vaccination scheme, which is now free for all. Preparations are also made at the city's land and air borders. Macy Mock reports.
It took $84 billion and more than a decade to build, but the high-speed rail link connecting Hong Kong with Guangzhou only lasted 16 months before operations were suspended because of COVID. After being dormant for nearly 3 years, the West Kowloon terminus may soon return to its former glory, after authorities confirmed that cross-border travel will resume in the near future. The Hong Kong airport, which used to be a major regional transit hub and features connections to around 50 mainland cities, is also aware of the development. The airport authority said it welcomed the news and pledged to work with airlines and other parties to ensure smooth operations. While cross-border travel will undoubtedly give the economy a much-needed boost, a health expert feared the sudden surge could lead to health risks. Jin Dong-yan from University of Hong Kong's School of Biomedical Sciences said SAR residents who return with COVID could further strain the city's healthcare system. He suggested performing compulsory COVID tests on returning travelers to screen positive cases. The professor also expected a spike in demand for mRNA vaccines, which remain unavailable across the border. He proposed charging a fee for non-SAR residents who administer COVID jabs, as the vaccination program is funded by taxpayers' money. The suggestion was echoed by William Choi, president of the Society of Hospital Pharmacists. But he shot down fears of a vaccine shortage, saying supply remains abundant for Hong Kongers. But over-the-counter medicines such as painkillers could be snapped up by mainland tourists, and Choi urged local pharmaceutical firms to boost production now in anticipation of the huge demand. Writing on Ta Kung Pao newspaper, Chief Executive John Lee said the quarantine-free travel to mainland will be established in a gradual, orderly, and safe manner. He promised to formulate a plan which can accommodate the ever-changing pandemic situation on both sides of the border. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
COVID infections have dropped for the second straight day. There were another 19,398 cases yesterday, the first time in 4 days that the uptick fell below 20,000. Only 865 cases were imported. Another 47 people succumbed to COVID, including a 31-month-old baby girl. Over 11,509 people have now passed away from COVID in Hong Kong, while more than 2.5 million were infected since the virus emerged in 2020. Morgues on the mainland are working in overdrive due to a large-scale COVID outbreak following the easing of social distancing rules. Officially, there were another 2,637 symptomatic COVID infections yesterday, with no additional deaths. But video circulating online suggested a very different scenario. Morgues in various regions were overwhelmed, despite cremating over 100 bodies every day. At this morgue in Chongqing, there was even a 4-kilometer line for hearses. Meanwhile, authorities are cracking down on scalpers who sell drugs at a premium. Arrests were made in Shenyang, where painkillers were sold for over 3,000 yuan per bottle. Back locally, as Christmas celebrations continue, maybe spare a thought for medical staff at public hospitals. An influx of patients due to an extended cold spell pushed the waiting time past 8 hours at many emergency rooms. Here's Macy Mock.
It was an unforgettable Christmas for patients waiting to be admitted to Kwong Wah Hospital. As admissions jump under the cold spell, patients have had to wait over 7 hours before they were attended by a doctor in the emergency room. The ward's waiting area was completely filled up by this afternoon. This man, who experienced breathing difficulties after falling off a bike, said he was exhausted from the long wait, having been in line since 8 p.m. last night. He was classified as a non-urgent case and was made to wait overnight for a checkup on his chest. Another woman who accompanied her elderly mother said they have been in the queue for 5 hours after showing up early this morning. The emergency wards at many other public hospitals reported waiting times of 8 hours or longer. They included Eastern Hospital in Taiwan, United Christian Hospital in Kwun Tong, and Tin Shui Wai Hospital. The hospital authority has called for understanding and urged non-urgent patients to seek consultation at general outpatient clinics or private hospitals. It has pledged to boost manpower at emergency wards and increase the number of temporary beds. But frontline workers complained the staff shortage remained severe as some colleagues were absent after contracting COVID. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
Overseas, dozens of hungry and weak Rohingya refugees were found on a beach in Indonesia after spending a month at sea. The group of 58 men arrived on a rickety boat at the fishing village of Ladong in northern Aceh province yesterday. 3 of them were in a serious condition, while many others were dehydrated. One of the rescued said they had been at sea for over a month after trying to make their way to Malaysia from Bangladesh. For years, the Rohingya people have been fleeing persecution from the military leaders in Myanmar. Millions of people in the United States hunkered down against a deep freeze, hoping to ride out the winter storm that has claimed at least 34 lives. Japan was also experiencing extreme snowfall since last week, with 17 people killed in snow-related accidents. Azam Khan reports.
The scope of the winter storm has been unprecedented, stretching from Canada all the way down to the U.S.-Mexico border. In the city of Buffalo in western New York State, residents shivered through record snowfall hurricane-force winds. Governor Kathy Hochul conceded nearly every fire truck in the city has been stranded and has shut the airport for another day at least. The blizzard has wreaked havoc over the holiday weekend. Millions were left without power, while flight schedules were upside down. Also hit hard was the western U.S. state of Montana, where temperatures plunged to minus 45 degrees Celsius. Forecasters say the storm will ease off in the next few days, but in the meantime, tens of millions of Americans were told to stay indoors and hope for the best. Across the world in Japan, heavy snowfall has taken the lives of at least 17 people, while dozens more were injured. Blizzards were mainly reported in mountainous regions, from Kyushu to Hokkaido, where more than a meter of snow was dumped. Azam Khan, HKIBC.
Britain's King Charles paid a heartfelt tribute to his late mother in his first Christmas message as monarch. He also made references to the war in Ukraine and a cost of living crisis, as well as thanked frontline workers and volunteers for helping those in need.
In the much-loved carol, O Little Town of Bethlehem, we sing of how in thy dark street shineth the everlasting light. My mother's belief in the power of that light was an essential part of her faith in God, but also her faith in people, and it is one which I share with my whole heart. It is a belief in the extraordinary ability of each person to touch with goodness and compassion the lives of others and to shine a light in the world around them. And at this time of great anxiety and hardship, be it for those around the world facing conflict, famine, or natural disaster, or for those at home finding ways to pay their bills and keep their families fed and warm, we see it in the humanity of people throughout our nations and the Commonwealth who so readily respond to the plight of others.
In the first televised message not delivered by Queen Elizabeth since 1957, King Charles chose to film the speech at St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle. His wife Camilla and other members of the royal family appeared extensively in the 8-minute broadcast, including the Prince and Princess of Wales. But his other son, Prince Harry, and his wife Meghan were missing from the video. Like many people around the world, Ukrainians celebrate Christmas by attending church services and listening to the choir. But for the war-torn nation, the tradition has long been observed at a different date, until the Russian invasion this year. It was a year of many firsts for Ukrainians, and Christmas was no exception. Christians in the war-torn nation have long celebrated the birth of Jesus on January the 7th, in line with the Russian Orthodox Church, which follows the ancient Julian calendar. But many were now desperate to draw a line from Russia. At this church in Bobrovitsia, northeast of Kyiv, members voted overwhelmingly to move up their celebrations by 13 days to align with the Western world.
І більшість людей проголосували, підтримали цю ідею, тому
We are celebrating Christmas today because this is the desire of the community, said priest Rostislav Kochak. The move, sanctioned by the Orthodox Church of Ukraine, is seen as a symbolic step for Ukrainians to build their own identity moving forward. Over in Kharkiv, where Russian missiles continue to fall from the skies from time to time, soldiers attended a Christmas service before they returned to the front line. In his daily address, President Volodymyr Zelensky wished his people a Merry Christmas, but warned against letting their guard down from a new wave of Russian rocket attacks. This was despite Russian President Vladimir Putin repeatedly saying that he was ready to talk. In an interview with state television, Putin said he was prepared to negotiate some acceptable outcomes with Ukraine. But it's their business. It's not us who refuse to talk, it's them, he claimed. On to the weather now. Staying fine and dry tomorrow. Temperatures will range between 15 and 19 degrees, dipping to 13 degrees on Thursday. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Monday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Raymond Yeung. Thanks for watching. Good night.